Good afternoon, everyone. This is Eric Rhodes live from Quantico, Virginia. This is Sarah Knowlton.
I'm the Resilience and Wellness Program Manager.
Thank you for tuning in to our WARR Educational Speaker Series. Our goal with the Speaker Series is to provide accessible, expert-driven education that strengthens the readiness, resilience, and total force of Marine staff and partner organizations. Today's session is going to be a little bit different of a format. We're going to have a podcast style format to make it a little bit more conversational. During the call, please drop your questions in the chat at any time. Sarah and I will monitor the chat and bring questions into the conversation as they are fit. And if time allows, we will address the remaining questions at the end. Just a reminder, you will get a certificate of attendance for joining the speaker series. And if you're an IPPW, make sure that you put your name into the chat with IPPW next to it so that we can ensure that you get the correct certificate. With that being said, we are super excited. We have an absolute leader in human performance with Dr. Andy Galpin. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Andy Galpin. Sir, if you could please kind of give everyone like a general brief overview of who you are and what you're doing for those who might not know you.
Absolutely. First of all, it's a great honor to be here. I'm so happy to do this, and you all are the ones that are really doing all the hard work in the field. So I just get to be the spokesperson, and so again, really honored to be here. My background is I've got a PhD in muscle biology and bioenergetics, and I've been conducting research for about 15 years now. So I spent 13 years running the Center for Sport Performance at Cal State Fullerton, and in the last 2 years I've transitioned and am at Parker University, where we're building a giant, brand new 65,000 square foot human performance center.
Wow.
So as a scientist and academic, this has been my life. Human performance is really what I do broadly. So we don't have a very particular or specific expertise in that lab. Anything that we feel like can produce and enhance human performance, as wide ranging as that term is exactly what we do. Additionally, we have worked directly with and still continue to work with high performing individuals. So this has mostly been high performing athletes, the big names, the MVPs, the Hall of Famers, the award winners, and basically every major pro sports. So it's a little bit of science, it's a little bit application, and trying to help those things blend together and work with each other so that we get better research questions and we get better practical application outputs as well. So I can go on, but I think you get the gist of it at this point. So again, really happy to be here and honored for the invitation.
Likewise for us, we're super excited to have you here. And we know how much you've been kind of diving into sleep and that's effect on human performance. And for me, a major part of my program is sleep education. And I think everyone pretty much on this call understands how sleep really bleeds into every aspect of fitness, from physical, mental, to social, to spiritual. And I think a big thing in kind of the world right now, we're so data driven and we're so metrics driven. We really wanted to kind of talk to you about like wearables and like what are the best wearables for measuring sleep. We know about the Oura Ring, but kind of wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go about this. You want to take a ceiling and a floor approach. So what I mean by that is if you're trying to raise the ceiling of somebody's maximal readiness, this is often termed as things like sleep optimization, and most of us realize that's not a thing, and oftentimes that's actually really disadvantageous and problematic. But there's that, right, where we're trying to get this peak performance and get the best possible sleep to be the most resilient, most effective. Then you have the bottom. And why I'm saying that is you mentioned really quickly there that sleep education. There's a lot of research on, it's funny, but the basic education stuff still has a huge impact for a lot of people. And so my answer is going to be attempting to speak to both sides of this equation. If you're the person who are like, oh my gosh, yes, the basics, hygiene, like we get it, get past it. Is this all this guy's going to say? Yeah, we can go to the top, man. I can go over the stuff we're doing at the really elite level, but I do want to make sure that if you're that person who's like, yo, I'm just trying to get 10,000 people to not drink monsters at 7:00 at night. Like, okay, there's still a lot of wins that can be happening there. So wearables, fall right into that. You have several grades of them. We'll call the first ones consumer. This is your $200 to $400 Apple Watch, Whoop, Aura, all those things. There are plenty of studies, and I can give you tons of examples, even of high performers, where they can be effective. What are they effective for? Awareness, accountability. Again, the bottom people here, the floor, don't have any concept of what they're doing. And there's also what's called the Hawthorne effect, where people tend to make better decisions when they know they're being watched, even if they're watching themselves. And so I can say a strong rationale of saying, hey, look, it's a simple thing to do. It's easy to manage. We can scale this as long as we have budget, so on and so forth. So that's real. And we've seen this work on big population data sets and levels. The downside of them are things like the individual metrics within them are just bad and wrong, right? So total sleep time, depending on the device, is maybe okay. The time it takes you to fall asleep is sometimes okay. That's called sleep onset. The things in between are almost all garbage. So the sleep staging, how much did I spend in REM or deep?
Yes.
These are metrics you should almost all throw away. Now, like any good scientist, if you're simply using them as saying they're not valid, but they might be reliable, again, okay, like we can make an argument there. But you want to be really careful because we see people take actions, supplements, pharmaceuticals, or what other protocols that they're doing, and they're basing it on things like what their wearable told them for their REM time to try to get their REM sleep from 45 minutes to 65 minutes. These are all completely arbitrary numbers. Like they're all just made up, and I could give you explicit detail about why this is here if you'd like, or we can skip past it. So those are the things where we say like avoid that type of stuff. They also are telling you no insights about why you're sleeping that way.
Right.
So then they don't tell you what to do about it at all. And so if you're the type of person who is able to run good experiments, even at the highest level, like I'm going to take magnesium threonate and for a week and try. So if you're that person who's paying attention and your system is reliant enough on, it's similar enough to where you can kind of run little mini experiments, then fine. But if you're in chaos all the time, where your sleep schedule is different and every part of your nutrition, then you're really, one could argue strongly, wasting time, if not potentially even seeing lots of false flags that you want to be wary of. Especially if you're in a situation where you spent tens of thousands of dollars to equip this on a lot of people. And now it's like, okay. But again, pros and cons here. At the highest level, we have far better technology. Our company, of course, I'm heavily biased, so conflict of interest is disclosed on that one. But pick somebody else if you'd like. We can run full research grade laboratory testing at home with no wires. We can do any of those things, and we can account for everything from your bedding to your mental health, your nutrition, to your exercise, to the environment and air quality. And that is critical because now we understand now why you're sleeping that way, which then gives us really specific and simple solutions of what to do about it. So that's more the ceiling type of stuff, right? Where if we have more resources, you have more attention and time, and you're not trying to do this on 4,000 people. Well, we could do that at scale too, but you get the point there. So I can go on as deep as you want here, but at the highest level, I think that's the best way to think about it because these deployable technologies are now getting like really, really cheap. We can do ours for a few $100s per person. Like it's not that expensive anymore. And you can get much, much, much more specific data, analysis, interpretation, and then eventual solution steps.
I think you touched on like a big point, so for the war fighters, life is pretty chaotic, right? Especially in the deployable setting, you're not going to be able to optimize sleep. And it's even to the point where we shouldn't really talk about it.
No.
It's more educating them. I always look at like, okay, based on your situation, what are some little tips or little things that you can do to get yourself a little bit better and get yourself in a little bit better sleep environment? And I think, like you said, we are getting so reliant on wearable data, and people think it's the end all be all. And I'm happy that you said that it really is not, that, there's a lot of junk material from it. That being said, what are what are some tips, like quick tips that you would that you could give that someone in a not an advantageous setting could do to try to help their sleep be a little bit better?
Yeah, two big categorical things, and I'll just be, transparent here. This is my philosophy.
Sure.
Overall, I like to collect a lot of high quality data at baseline so that we know how to adjust when we're not at baseline. This is how we approach everything for all of our, executives and athletes and all that. And we have worked with a number of military folks, and mostly from the special ops side. And this is what we've done with them. If I know how to get your sleep great when you're at home, when you're not doing anything crazy, we have a set schedule. I now have
Hmm.
some chance at giving you a couple of strategies that are deployable, right? That are technology free, that are environment free, all those things. Simple things like this. If you have positional apnea, meaning you might have sleep apnea only in certain sleeping positions, this is
Okay.
really, really, really common. We can run that test in your bed, in your hotel, like all that stuff, in your vacation house and your cabin and all those. And we start to realize, and these are real examples, where we've had one individual who had mild sleep disturbances, but higher than we would like. And we realized that 90% of those were happening in one sleeping position. And so we got him a little pack. It was like $15 or $20. It was like a reverse fanny pack, basically. So you put a fanny pack on, but put it on backwards. And this stopped him from sleeping on his back. And it was weird and awkward for a couple of days, but we reduced his waking events by 80% the first night.
Wow.
But why this matters, you're not going to take that pack when you're out. But it took us a few weeks to just train him to sleep on either side, not that position. And then you take the pack away and he never sleeps in that position anymore. So this is something where it's a basic change of saying, okay, is there something anatomical? Is there something physiological that happens in your system that is correctable? Really common things like a CPAP breathing device, like you're not going
Hmm.
to use those. We're all for it. I mean, medicine, great here. We don't use it, like, because of these solutions. Even an oral appliance, sometimes that can work, like a mouthpiece, if you will. But again, in situations like this, like, people are not going to take them. So what can you do? There are tools like, it's funny enough, but there are tongue exercises that you can do that take a few weeks to actually take effect, but those will, in large part, correct or solve entirely those breathing problems. We can do the same thing. There's excellent research on expiratory muscle training. So this is actually the original research came from people playing didgeridoos. And I'm sure all of you are out there like, oh yeah, of course I have a didgeridoo in my closet. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a long saxophone looking musical instrument, and you have to
Okay.
blow into it. All you're doing is training diaphragm and expiratory strength. And
Okay.
so you do that for a few weeks, and those muscles get really strong, and apnea can be reduced by 80% in those
How long
cases.
does that take? Like from that
Those
type of
original
training?
studies were like 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
And so you're looking at like small expiratory muscle strength training devices, $30, $40, $50, $60, something like that. And you do it, once a day for every day for 6 weeks. Like there's different training protocols.
Sure.
Global point being, if you know, first of all, is it apnea? Okay, which is like, if you look at sleep medicine, 99% of sleep medicine is apnea, and it totally disregards everything else, but whatever, we'll skip past that part. But even if it is apnea, is it central apnea? Is it peripheral apnea? Where is it at? Is it a tongue related issue that we can train? Is it an anatomical issue? Do we actually have to have a small procedure? These things are outpatient now. They're very cheap and easy. So you get my point. There's dozens and
Yes.
dozens of things, and maybe they don't solve it or cure it, but they can improve it by X%, and you don't have to do anything moving forward or maintenance, and doesn't require technology, all that. So in these situations, this is exactly how we do it. So our professional athletes aren't in the same situation, of course, but
Right.
it's somewhat similar in the fact that they are traveling, they're not at home a lot, like there are limitations there to the average person. So there's a little bit of a parallel. So those would be my areas of focus: is when they're home, collect really, really robust data. A wearable is not going to do it. Like, I'm just sorry, but a consumer wearable will not get you that. Use that consumer wearable for ongoing tracking and, big, long data sets, stuff like that. But, I mean, there's actually a ton. There's a ton of cool stuff you can do with longitudinal data with wearables. But those aren't your gold standard tests, right? Like that's not, you still need to come in and do a real set of testing on them to see what's really happening. And then you can go about solutions that are realistic for them and their situation.
No, that's extremely helpful. And like Kate Colvin was on our WARR Educational Speaker Series, and she talked a lot about sleep hacking. And I think kind of what you described are some really good sleep hacking tips, which you don't need machines or equipment to do it. It's just being set up. And I kind of think, you know, my background is strength and conditioning. And I always think of it about when you're starting with a group doing baseline level of testing when you start out. It's like we can do that for sleep too. Just I don't think we always put two and two together, but that was super insightful.
Yeah, and to kind of extend off something that you mentioned, so you mentioned sleep positions, and when I think about our service members, especially ones when I worked with basic training units, they don't have control over their time, they don't have control over their stressful environment, but something that they would have control over is how they're sleeping. What could you talk a little bit more on like how we position ourselves in bed? How much is that individualistic to the person, and are there certain types of positions that are just general across the board, not the best way to be sleeping?
These are good questions. I will disagree with a lot of people on this stuff. You'll hear people say things like the right side versus the left side because all your organs, you know, your liver in particular is on one side. I think that's mostly nonsense. So if you're a side sleeper, left or right, I don't think I mean, you're splitting small hairs here, if any. And I'm just saying that because we've ran so many of these tests on people, and I don't know, we just really don't see that being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You will see a significant difference though on back in general, and we'll have plenty of people who have no issue on their back. But in general, men have a bigger problem sleeping on their back. You're more likely to see apnea or apnea-like things pop up there. So if you had to just force me to give you blanket advice, I would say on average, you're better there. When it comes to your stomach, it's very person dependent. Typically, you don't see as many men sleeping on their stomach as you do women. But again, it is very individualistic. And oftentimes, you see like a lot of low back things pop up with sleeps there. That changes a lot for women because, especially if they've gone through pregnancy or childbirth and they can't sleep on their stomach and they get used to sleeping otherwise. So that's a little bit of an answer between both. But yeah, in general, what I would say is if you have to, probably choose a side versus your back. But you know, plenty of people sleep just fine on your back.
How important, like, you know, kind of touching on it, how important is like say your pillow for that sleep environment? Like I'm thinking Marines in a deployable setting. Kate Colvin talked about like bring your best pillow. Like your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it can be super helpful. We have a lot of times there's pretty cool, easy technology where you can run a really quick scan of your neck and shoulder and jaw line and all that and get a custom pillow for that. So if you're home, great. It's not expensive. I think it's in the neighborhood of $100 for the setup and scan of the pillow. So nothing, you know, totally wild. It's still $100 for a pillow, but you know, nothing outrageous.
Help you sleep, I'll take it.
Sure. The answer is again entirely individual, and there's hard things there. We generally want to think about things like comfort. If you're waking up not in neck pain, that's a good sign. Um, but it will depend a lot on that. So whether you take those with you, we have for several years rather, recommended people that travel a lot to take a pillow with them. And a lot of times what we do is just buy two. One is for bed and one is just in your suitcase at all times. Like that way you're not packing it, remembering. It's like again, it's two of them. Who cares? It's 200. It's like another $100, and it's just there.
Right.
But these are for our athletes and executives stuff that are traveling like really consistently, so it makes sense to be there. Other people hate the idea. Fine. You know, do you want to pack this thing through wartime stuff? Boy, I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, I guess the answer is it could be everything for you, and it could be nothing. This is when I'd go back to if you have the opportunity, and I won't do this anymore. This is the last time, but if you have the opportunity to run those little tests before you go, then you know, right? So are you someone who responds a lot to a specific pillow, and this is a really big deal? Are you someone who maybe makes a moderate change, but it's not that big a deal, or it doesn't matter at all? If you know that, then you know whether or not this is even a big deal for you. So that's what I would recommend doing.
Um, kind of moving on to, something else. Heart rate variability. Obviously, it's a big topic that comes up major in sleep. Can you talk about that a little bit? And not just its effect on the physical side of things, but say the social emotional side as well.
Yeah, it's been around for 60 years.
Yeah.
It's nothing new, but it is really nice. It is neat. Our preference is to look at it as one metric of many. And I say that because if you look at some of the more recent research as well as large database stuff, you'll see a really strong correlation between HRV and simply how do you feel.
Hmm.
You can predict a lot of it. The vast majority of people are going to be pretty tight on that. So the benefit of HRV is it is non-specific, which means, did you pick up some GI bug? Are you stressed psychologically? Are you overworked physically? Are you under caloried? Are you injured? You'll see HRV move, but you won't know where it's moving at. So it's
Mhm.
nice, but at the same time, it is reasonably sensitive. Meaning, if you go drink beer tonight, it'll change tomorrow.
Right.
Cool. If you contrast that to something like resting heart rate is also non-specific, which is good, but it's non-sensitive either. So your resting heart rate, if you're sick, it'll change. If you eat a ton of food, it'll change, like right before bed. But for the most part, your average resting heart rate over like a 7-day span, it won't move that much. And if it does, if the 7-day average is, more than 10% higher than your baseline, something real is going on. But that thing happened probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. So the downside of resting heart rate is it's a lagging indicator, but it's an order of like it matters. They actually published a paper in the last couple of months looking at like we had over 2 million day points with Whoop data over several 100,000 participants. And one of the things that we found, and some people have been on this for a number of years now, is things like HRV and resting heart rate. But HRV in this particular case, they don't matter per se, the score for most people. What matters is their coefficient of variance. And that actually was far more telling than anything else. And so, what I'm kind of saying, if you're not up on stats a lot, is most people are up to the speed now where it's like, don't look at your HRV score today. Like
Mhm.
it'll go up and down. That's normal. But what matters is how much up and down is normal for you. So I'll give you some
Right.
hard numbers as made up, just maybe make this a little bit more tangible. Let's say on your device, your HRV score on most days is 100. Doesn't matter, just fake number, right? And your score is 50. Okay, fine. I don't know that you're any better at 100 than 50. Like I can't tell at all. But if you're 100 and you're plus or minus 5, which means some days you're 105, some days you're 95. So your variance is small. Other person could be at 50 and their variance might be 20. So they might
Mhm.
go down to 30 and up to 70. That's their coefficient of variance. How much is changing? That's what tells us everything. And so you need to actually understand what is your normal homeostatic range. And then you only care about it if you start to exceed that homeostatic range for multiple days, typically at a time. Some people are really tight, and some people are highly responsive. In general, the tighter you are, the more stable your nervous system is. Generally associated with people that are healthier, though not always. And then sometimes the opposite. So somebody who does the littlest thing and their HRV gets cut in half, then that person has a little bit less neurologic or nervous system control and probably needs to work on a little more stability
Mhm.
in that sense. So HRV can be telling and helpful for things like that. It's just not the way that it's traditionally been used as the most impactful. Now, I like to package that along with another metric called respiratory rate. Respiratory frequency is how you'll see this reported. It is also non-specific, but it is more sensitive than HRV. It'll change in a day or two. And if it changes, something significant happened. Not like, oh my God, go to the hospital, but like something that you should be noteworthy of. Could be extra training, could be whatever. But the variance is much smaller. And so if your typical resting heart rate or respiratory rate is 15 breaths per minute at night, and it jumps to 18, like something like you're sick, like something is happening there that you got. So I like to use all three of those metrics before we make too many like long-term decisions about are we training too much, are we pushing, whatever the case is. You can take acute changes on those pretty easily. So there's lots of stuff you can do today. If those numbers are just down a little bit or something. But I actually prefer respiratory rate almost all three of them personally.
I guess thinking about those and looking at physical training. So say you're outside of your standard or where you typically are at. What kind of adjustments do you typically prescribe to people for their physical training? Like, we have a lot of young Marines, 18 to 25-year-olds who are new to training and aren't really sure how to adjust. What are some things that you think they should do?
Yeah, really great. Sleep is your biggest X factor here, without question. If your stuff is tanked, it's almost always a sleep issue, especially if it's tanked today, tomorrow. Rarely a big deal. One good night of sleep, you'll go right back.
Yeah.
Like that typically is it. Then you want to remove any idiotic decisions, right? It's like, well, okay, well, you had 12 beers yesterday. Like, let's not do that. Like, this is not exactly super novel in a cycle, but that's the vast majority. You've already cleared house with 80% of the cases just right out the gates, right? Or you ate, all you could eat ice cream yesterday right before bed. Like, it's really pretty obvious stuff.
Right.
It's really funny. People jump to like, oh, my training, maybe my periodization schedule's off. I should deload. It's like, okay, time out. Like, it's probably something way more basic than that. There certainly is a spot where you can get to where your training volume is exceeding your recovery capacity. And we can see that directly in blood. Now, that's stuff we actually just built and released 2 weeks ago. But nonetheless, like it's pretty there. If you get past all that stuff, then you can start getting down to, okay, is this under recovery or is this excessive training? And now you're playing one of two games, basically. Is this insufficient calories and fueling, or is this actually truly excessive training? Most of the time, you can figure that out pretty quickly by just ramping up calories, and things tend to swing them back into place, and you're fine. If you take like a half a day off, or you do light training for 2 or 3 days, and then you're right back, that'll typically resolve. I mean, now you're at 95% of cases. Like, that's basically it. Not often do you need to be like, oh, I need to go on vacation for 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, you don't need to go to the beach for a week and a half. Most people from a very mild deload will feel really good pretty quickly.
Right.
In our world, again, sometimes that's literally like, hey, take Saturday off. And then it's like you come back Monday, you're like, oh, legs feel better. Like, great. Like,
Yes.
that's probably all you really need to do. So that's kind of what we would focus on categorically, and probably the order in which we would take the priorities.
From like a specific physical training aspect. So say I have a prescribed, Monday, I'm supposed to hit 3 sets of 10 on squats at 65%. I'm feeling kind of beat up a little bit. Like, say I didn't get enough sleep, my nutrition wasn't great. Would you tell this person that they should not do that lower body day, or would you adjust the lower body day to something else?
We're almost never going to choose the option of don't do the workout.
Yeah.
On a single day like that. Now, it depends on what phase of training you're in. If we're peaking for competition, yeah, we're probably going to shut it down. We're going to do something else. We're going to, change. We're going to move. We're going to do maybe hot therapy stuff. So getting a sauna, getting a hot tub, maybe more dynamic range of motion. Like, we're going to move, get blood flow going. We'll do all that kind of stuff. But if we're not, if we're actually in a state of training where we're trying to induce adaptation, we're not taking the day off from one day's metrics for a bunch of reasons. One, like a single night of bad sleep won't do anything to performance. Like, you're just fine. Get through it. The reality of it is too, like, fine. If we need a little extra shot of espresso today, fine. If we need to turn the music up a little bit, fine. If we need to do some psychological motivation stuff, fine. You can't do that stuff every week, every training day. But if it's that occasional, like, I got to do this workout, it's just not here today, and we look at the whole schedule and the whole week and the whole month, and we're going, no, this is a day we need, then fine. Like, play those little tactics, right? Like, and people will tend to get through it. If this has been chronic, more than 5 days, 7 days, and consistently going down, and we're seeing other signs, especially if we have blood work or we have any really like moderately good sleep data, and we're seeing physiological signs outside of perception. Because one of the things you'll notice that I kind of glanced by there is small changes in energy, like sleep, will alter perception and perceived fatigue a lot, but they don't actually alter performance. So you will feel tired. You will feel like things are harder, but you're still going to perform just as well, typically, unless these are true chronic, like sleep elimination, things like
Right.
that. But for the most part, like you're fine, get through it. And if you get 85% of the way through it, and then you got to bail out on rep 8 on set 3, like all right, we're probably fine. Like we probably got everything done we need to get done. A lot more than if we would have just bailed on the whole session. So we're not typically worried about that. At the same point, if you get that far into it and you're just like on set 2 on rep 3 and you are like taking 4 breaths to make sure you can get one more, I was like, all right, okay, like at some point,
Something's off.
yeah, like you're probably gonna wake up sick the next day, and it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So there's some intelligence there, but categorically, I'm generally like, well, okay, what part of hard did you think was going to be easy? Like this is
Yeah.
what
Yeah, exactly.
like
We did have someone from the chat that had a follow-up question of something that you mentioned previously. They were wondering how, in relations to alcohol consumption, how much / frequent alcohol consumption falls in that 80% of cases.
could you reword that? What do you mean? The 80% of cases I know, I don't remember that part, but like how much, how frequent?
Yeah, how much and how frequent of alcohol
Okay.
consumption falls. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what they're asking, but maybe I'll answer this way and hopefully I'll catch it. There's no amount of alcohol that is beneficial to your physiological health. That said, the human body is quite resilient. If the kind of numbers you're going to hear thrown around a lot are like 2 to 3 drinks per week. If you're below that, it's probably fine for the most part. If you're young, a high performer, you're moving a lot, everything else in your physiology is really dialed, and nutrition, all that, like you can probably buffer a little bit of alcohol like that. Will you see changes in your HRV even at 2 to 3 drinks per week? Yeah, but maybe not to a level you care about. Frequency, again, we say like kind of once to twice per week. These would be ideal scenarios. That said, I can tell you flat out right now, we have more than a few professional athletes who are just stone hard alcoholics, right? 5 to 10 drinks per night every day. Like that's what they're at, and they're still professional athletes. They're not getting their best for sure, but it's not like you have 3 beers on a weekend and all of a sudden you can't perform for a month. Like that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Most people are going to drink 3 to 5 servings at least twice per week, and then a couple, like that's a pretty common, and you can be okay with it. So there's a difference also between trying to perform at your absolute best and is this giving us huge physiological health problems. Those are kind of different things. So I'm not sure if that answered the total amount. So if you're going to hear it out of my mouth, I'm going to say no amount of alcohol is best.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm not at 0 though, right? Like I drink alcohol on occasion. So if you're going to choose to do it, generally keep, if you can, I would say less than 3 drinks per serving. Also, I was a teenage and 20-year-old man for many years of my life. So like, it's pretty unrealistic to be like, yeah, okay, Marines, like no more than 2 drinks on the weekend. Like, sure,
Yeah.
like that's going to happen. So you're probably fine. At that point, I'd probably be more concerned with saying, just stay at home, put your keys away. As long as you do that, like I'm more concerned about that. Like just don't put your cell phone away, and don't pull out your keys, and then we're probably all right.
Yeah.
I guess looking at kind of, brought up kind of the cell phone thing, and I'm thinking about, we're talking about wearables and data. Do you think society wise, we've become over reliant on this information, just with all this data collection?
In some aspects, yes. In other aspects, you have to evolve with technology. Like it's not stopping. I'm not going to go too far here in this, but if you look at historically what humans have done cognitively that differentiates us from all other animals is language. That's been our key secret. That's why we exceeded other sapiens as well as other animals and our ancestors and neighbors and such like that. So if we are starting to use technology for those purposes, I think we start to run into problems. You're seeing huge issues with boredom. And there's actually, people are really unaware of this, but there's something right now that most folks are referring to as the creativity crisis, where creativity scores in kids are plummeting. And that's in direct relation to not the screen or technology or AI, but because of actually like a boredom. And there's a whole science behind that. So as long as it's not like you're plugged in 24/7, then I don't think the product technology is as big of a deal. It's the fact that it's more of not what you're getting. It's bigger deal is what you're not getting, and that is boredom. We're seeing the same thing. The average annual spend right now on sleep is around $600 billion, but yet it continues to get worse globally.
Yeah.
In part because these wearable technologies are not working for sleep at all. The sleep environment is under more threat than it's ever been, but also because there's no time during the day that you have to cognitively process. So what happens is you go from work, and even on work meetings, you're probably using multiple forms of media. You're doing some emails while you're listening to this right now. You're doing this. You're on the phone while you're in the grocery, like all the examples, right? Why that becomes an issue is, and you'll see this in recovery data, is there's no processing time. So you go from high engagement, high arousal states all throughout the day. You then double that down with high intensity exercise, and there's no processing time. So as soon as you get into bed, that's the only time you have to process. And then this is when you get you wired and tired and all that stuff where you're like exhausted the last few hours a day, get into bed, and then your mind starts taking off. It's because it's the only time it's had to process, consolidate, all those things. So those are issues where technology is compromising things. It is becoming an issue, and there are easy solves for that are not crazy and unrealistic. We will oftentimes recommend, if you can, do a 5-minute walk twice a day with no headphones. Like, we're not listening to podcasts, we're not listening to music, we're not taking a work call. Just breathe through your nose, and if you can walk for 5 to 10 minutes a couple times a day, that stuff that's stunningly effective. Actually, you'll see HRV, you'll see these things move, you'll see sleep hugely improving, you'll see cognitive capacity, creativity, word, recall, arithmetic go up. Where I don't think technology is as much a concern is the democratization of health is a good thing. I don't want to have to go to a hospital to get a sleep test done. Like, that's insane. It's such an arbitrary thing. So sleep clinics are a complete disaster, and our ability to have moved that into the home now is a huge win. It's a huge win with your ability to pull up AI and create spreadsheets and analyze data. Humans are actually cognitively really bad at numbers. In fact, this is why we developed writing in the first place. The first written language was not stories and a culture. It was accounting. Like, you owe Dave $10. And it's that type of stuff. So we're not good at that stuff. So the fact that we're failing on arithmetic, I'm actually okay with. Like, I just don't think us having to know knowledge, we've never been particularly good at it. What we are really good at are the other things. And so as long as we preserve those, I'm actually okay. So we just need a little bit of space. We need boredom. We need creativity, and we need actual expertise. And then if math turns into the old cursive writing, and it's like, fine. Like, it's like, well, huge deal, and everyone was pissed it went away, and then it's like, did it really matter? Like, probably not. Like, didn't matter at all. A lot of math and a lot of things we're using AI for, I'm okay with. But that other part is where the struggle is going to be. I mean, just look at mental health is the lowest it's ever been.
Yes.
Like, this is a pretty obvious one here. So we've got to steer towards that stuff and not be so worried about the other basic components. Fact memorization is like the fact you have to pop on AI to look up like some random factoid. It's probably okay. Like, it's kind of annoying and sucks, but it's probably okay because humans are just been never great at factoid memorization.
Well, thank you for connecting it like that and painting that picture. Thinking about the 5-minute walks as a way to kind of decompress and get yourself away from technology. For those trying to get to sleep, what do you think about like unwind times? So like I do on my phone, I'll put the unwind setting where I can't get notifications 45 minutes before bed. Texts don't go through. It dims the light on my phone. Do you think that stuff is advantageous to do?
It's not negative.
Mm.
No one ever slept worse because they did that, right? Nothing in your life got worse because you did that. And that can swing from really impactful to maybe it didn't move the needle a ton. We actually have a partnership right now with a company called Waking Up. So Waking Up is a meditation platform. And in the month of June, we're running a 14-day guided sleep journey. It's not all meditation focused, but it covers things like exactly what you're talking about. And what are these things doing? How are they working? When to fold them in? Nobody wants to have a 90-minute wind down routine. Nobody wants a 40-minute wind down routine, right? Like that's just not realistic. So how do you actually fold this into a high performer's life, right? Whether you're a high performer physically or you're running companies or you're just, you're working and you're a mom, like, okay, those are high performers, right? You're
Right.
multitasking, you have a lot going on, and you got to be able to organize. So we have to come up with wind down routines that are great. If you ask me categorically wind down routines, you're going to see a mountain of evidence. They are hugely impactful, but you have to make them realistic. I think the language around this stuff has been so much like, okay, great. I can clearly tell that advice is coming from a 33-year-old entrepreneur in Encinitas and has no children. Like, amazing. You wake up at 8 in the morning, you go surf, like you're not a real human being. This advice like doesn't count for me. So the little tips and tricks you're talking about,
Yeah.
when they're working, it's not necessarily because a little bit of blue light hits your eyes, 75 minutes before you went to sleep. It's because physiology's greatest skill is pattern recognition. So you have it's what we call an anchor. You anchor it, and the physiology starts to recognize, oh, about an hour from now, I go to sleep. And so this is actually one of the biggest unlocks that you'll see for all of sleep. If you can handle pattern recognition, you're going to be fine. If your pattern recognition is bad, you're going to be in chaos. And so you have to be able to get it into strategies. And this is the person who's like, I slept great for 3 nights, and then all of a sudden I was up all night. I don't understand why. There's no rhyme or rhythm to it. There is. There's 100% a rhyme or rhythm to it. You just haven't realized what those key anchors are. But something is kicking you into the proper cascade, and something's kicking out of it. So those examples you gave are great. This is a case of the principles are few, and the methods are many. There's a couple of few ways to get there. And those methods you talked about, sure, great. But as long as you're getting the concepts, pick the thing that worked for you and your family and go for that. But yeah, keeping that consistent is a really smart idea.
Yeah. What I'm trying to think of now is that we've had a lot of like big concept discussion. I'm thinking of like the immediate takeaway from Marines. So to give you like an example, let's say we have Marines that are deploying or they're already deployed right now. They're in a situation where they don't have access to a human performance team. They're on their own. They have to figure these things out on their own. If you were to have a Marine ask you like, hey, like I have a wearable, I have like a ring or a watch or something, or do I need to be looking more at my environment or looking at like the different apps and everything? What are the best things that they can do on their own as immediate takeaways to help with their sleep? Because those are the types of questions that our staff get on like a daily basis.
Yeah, great. So number one, what you're talking about is running an experiment. So the rule number one for the experiments are always, what is our dependent variable? Meaning what's the outcome we're looking for? Now, in this particular case, if you've got a wearable, then the outcome I would strongly consider would be something like total sleep time. Okay. But more important than that, consistency. So within your scope, within your range, when you can control it, and I know you can't, try to be as consistent as you can. Right? Your ring, your watch won't necessarily show those things, but that is going to make more of an impact as you can. Again, I'll reiterate, when you can, I get it. You don't always have that full control. When you do, try to be as consistent, plus or minus 30 minutes. This includes waking up time. So try to go to bed and wake up at the same time. Where we see huge problems are, I woke up, I had to get up at 4 for 3 days in a row, so then I slept till 10 the next day. All right, like you just created enormous jet lag. That's called social jet lag. There's a balance though between you're like, yo, I literally slept for 3 hours for 3 straight nights, and there's a huge amount of debt I have to catch back up from. Okay, great. So try to figure out what is the baseline. What is the most consistent time that you can normally wake up from? And then try to anchor to that consistent time. And if you need extra sleep, try to go to sleep earlier. rather than sleeping way further in. Do your best. That's the big key, right? But having some anchor point to my normal time is going to be 5 a.m. and we're going to try to stay around that when we can and control. Then the data will tell you, what's happening. Wouldn't worry about the stages. Wouldn't worry about the percentages. Definitely do not worry about the recovery score or the readiness score or any of those like global things. I could give you a million reasons why. Don't just disregard those. Oftentimes, if you really care about this stuff, we'll tell people don't even look at your score. Look at it once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down and look at your average for the 7 days once a week rather than day by day by day. Do not, under any circumstance, check your score immediately upon waking. That is the worst possible scenario.
What about coming back, coming back from a deployable setting where your sleep patterns are probably all over the place? Yep. How do you get back on track? That's a question we get all the time. It's like, okay, how do we get someone back to a normal sleeping environment, normal lifestyle environment?
Yeah, this is really another good question, and I can keep add layers to the previous answer while I'm doing this one. Sounds repetitive, but consistency is going to be the biggest thing you can. Supplements, whatever, they're not going to do much of anything. Sure. If you start setting an alarm for wake up time, and then set an alarm 60 minutes before you want to be asleep. Okay. So if you start waking up at the same time almost every day, it will not take your body more than 4 or 5 days to start going, okay, and circadian rhythms will start to get set. Protect the first 20 minutes after waking up. Don't check scores. If you can, don't check your phone. Don't check anything moderately stressful. Light physical activity and bright light. Okay, no stimulants, no caffeine, none of that. I don't need you to wait an hour and a half. Just literally give me 15 minutes. If I got to negotiate to 12 minutes, I'll work with you here, but give me some seconds. And I want a little bit of movement. If that's walking outside, if you can, if that is, air squats and stretching, whatever, bright lights inside, give it those first few minutes, and then you can go about your day and do your thing. At night, 60 minutes before, set that alarm. You're not going to do anything, but that alarm is going to go off. If I can argue with you into a 8-minute meditation, do it. And I don't care how bad a meditation you are. I don't care about any of the spiritual part of meditation. It is simply you being quiet in your brain for 8 minutes. If this does anything to your HRV, your heart rate, I do not care. But this will set a very clear anchor. And your body will start to recognize and realize, even if you get into bed and you don't fall asleep or whatever, it will not take it long to go, oh, I see what we do. This thing goes off, and this is Pavlovian's dog all over again, right? It's like anchor goes off, I start to do this, great. Now, within that last 60 minutes, obviously we will want to have had dinner already, so we're not going to eat within that 60 minutes. You can do personal hygiene, you can do that other stuff. Try to have a calming environment, so the lights a little bit dimmer than normal. The music a little bit quieter, the cell phone ringer a little bit quieter. Just try to tone things down when you can within reason. If you're the type of person who goes, okay, 60 minutes before bed, I put my phone on airplane mode and it's gone, great, best case scenario. Very unrealistic for most people, but fine. Can you, basically you'll see the strategy. What can you do? Can you commit to just not checking politics? No politics after the alarm. Cool. Okay, great. No work emails. Great. Nothing that makes you potentially aroused. If you want to watch TV, okay, fine. We can do that. But we're going to have, again, some negotiation here. Let's not do murder mystery podcasts. We're not going to do horror on TV. We're not going to do stories about children being abducted. We're not doing those things right before bed. Those are just, they're pretty idiot proof. You want to watch a baseball game? Fine. I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
We're fine here, right? You want to watch nature shows? There's stuff you can do there. Let's not read books about sci-fi and, vampires and stuff like that. So there's tons and tons of stuff. Again, a million methods we can do within that. And if that 60 minutes is too much, what I'd say is still set that alarm at 60 minutes. But then you can actually start your wind down routine at 30 minutes or something. But I want that alarm going. because it still takes the system like an hour and change to start really winding down. Those things are really, really impactful. Past that, you can get into, seeing more sunlight in the evening. You can get into lots of, like, way down the road, there are supplements and there's things like that you can do. But somebody coming back, trying to get this like back on normal time frame, like this is basically jet lag is what we're doing here, plus some
Right.
other stuff. And we do this stuff all the time. Those things they're really effective.
Yeah. So I think Eric will even appreciate this question that someone else brought up because we have some new parents in our group.
I'm new dad.
Yeah, so they're asking about like tips and advice about developing consistency when you have things in your environment such as disruption from newborns or toddlers that are
Yeah.
waking up at random times throughout the night.
Yeah, this is great. I've got 2 kids myself. I get it. My 6-year-old boy was terrorizing my wife in bed this morning. Happens. First and foremost, we recognize that this is actually pretty awesome, right? Like,
Yes.
kids are pretty great, and whatever. You don't have to be perfect. I said this earlier, but I'll reiterate. There is a lot of evidence. A bad night of sleep here and there doesn't do anything. You're fine. Like, you'll get through it. So I don't want people to have sleep anxiety where they're actually so much like, oh, I didn't get a perfect night of sleep. Oh my God. And then they freak out.
Well,
That's not the
over,
case.
yeah.
You're going to be totally fine. And there's a reality of there's just inherent restrictions with little ones, right? That's just like, no one in the world had a baby go from 0 to 25 years old and never was up at night, right? That's just like part of it. So what you can do is very similar to the situation where you can control what you can control when you can control it. And when you can't, that's like fine too. So what can you control? You parents have different philosophies. There's experts and research on both sides of this equation. So sleep training or not sleep training, that's a parental decision up to you for your little ones. That said, patterns are the key here. What you don't realize is if you have no pattern for your child, then why would you expect it to fall asleep?
Right.
Mhm.
Not going to happen, right? So if you can keep them within a 30-minute or so window most nights of when they go to bed, they're far less likely to have these huge blow-ups where they stay up for 2 hours and won't go to sleep. Okay? You're the same way. They're the same way. Their evening routine ends up being your evening routine. So if you put your kid down at 8 o'clock, you probably start that evening routine at 7, right? It's like we play a game, we take a bath, we brush our teeth, we get pajamas on, we read, we do this or whatever. Like, and even if they're going wild and nuts because their kids are going to get up and scream and play during that time, they're still doing the same thing in the same order. This is critical, right? You're going to have more success getting them to bed, and they're still going to be kids because they're getting to bed at roughly the same time. They're going to wake up at roughly the same time. Again, there's going to be some deviation here, but you're going to greatly mitigate the issues. That ends up being your 90-minute routine because you did that for an hour and then you have 30 minutes for your own stuff. And now you're set in a pretty good spot or whatever, however much longer you want to stay up after that. So my answer for the 0 to 100-year-old is categorically the same thing. You actually just your physiology needs to understand what's supposed to be happening next. If it doesn't, expect chaos, right? That's the kid who just falls asleep at 7 p.m. one night and then is up till 1 in the morning the next night. And you're like, what is going on? That's what's going on. Like the circadian rhythm doesn't know what to do.
Right.
So, in large part, again, think on averages, right? Think on collective averages. And that's what you want to get towards.
Yeah, I feel Ryan's perspective with it because my daughter is 10 weeks old, and that first month was brutal, and we finally got her to get on an actual sleep schedule that aligned more with us. And the past like couple of weeks have been far better. So yeah, I think
Well, don't
routine and
worry. It's going to get significantly worse again. You probably
I've
yet
heard
get.
I've heard that too. I'm getting sleep anxiety here thinking about
Oh,
it.
sleep regression is real, my friend.
Yeah.
It's real. I mean, babies are just like babies are hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, right? You can fold in naps here. There's a lot of research on naps. They're really effective for a lot of things. So there's no shame or hesitation for mom or dad with napping. There's lots of stuff. I think one thing that, again, this is a parental decision, so do whatever you want to do. But a lot of times with our athletes, in particular, you make decisions about things like, do we both have to get up because the 6-week-old is crying? Some parents want to choose that. Okay, fine. Some go, no, rotate you this time, me this time, or whatever. Now, obviously, mom, if you're nursing, is like not much dad can do
Right.
on those ones. So again, there's a lot of parent philosophy stuff, and you choose to raise your family how you'd like to do. But there are things like that you can think about and saying, okay, maybe past this we can rotate it this way, or on weekdays dad will do these, won't do these responsibilities, we'll do these on the weekends. And so just whatever works for your family. There's lots of options, but I think one of potentially the worst is just everybody suffering the whole time. It's like, okay, we could probably be a little more productive with this, but up to you.
Well, we got about 3 minutes. I think my last kind of question for you, and I kind of talked about it a little bit, nap times. Like what would you say are the most beneficial nap times?
Yeah. So totally fine with naps, given a couple of caveats. Remember, you got sleep pressure building up from the second you wake up until you go to evening. And it's really common and normal for people to have really high sleep pressure in the early afternoon. 12 to
Yeah.
3 o'clock is, depending on your schedule, absolutely normal. Not weird. Doesn't mean you have a thyroid issue. Doesn't mean your testosterone's tanked. Like, doesn't mean any. It's just like it's pretty normal. Okay. If you want to nap during that time, great. Typically, and we can go up to 90 minutes with our napping. Typically, what we found, 20 minutes or less is best. If you want to take a full traditional nap, cool. If you want to do a pseudo nap, and you just want to lay down and close your eyes and you want to meditate, or you just want to close your eyes, or you just want to sit down, um, these are fine. If you want to do something like a guided muscle relaxation protocol, like all these are fine. Whether you choose to fall asleep or whether you don't or you accidentally, it's probably fine. But we would like to keep it under 20 minutes, mostly because what you want to avoid is that hurting your sleep pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're napping and then you're finding it's taking you longer and longer to fall asleep at night, typical rule of thumb there is like 15 minutes, kind of on average. Now, people have no perception of their sleep onset or their sleep time, like none at all. People are wildly bad at thinking how long it takes them to fall asleep or recognizing it. So use technology there. Um, if it's longer than that, then we may want to back off sleep pressure, or we may want to back up naps because it's hurting sleep pressure.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sleeping that amount and you're sleeping all night, and you're just like, I'm just so tired all the time. Now we are actually looking straight in the face of a true clinical sleep disorder. You almost surely have something happening at night where you're getting such bad sleep that you are really fatigued throughout the day and needing 9+ hours, 9.5 hours, especially if you're not a high performing, high energy output. Like, you're not running 100 miles a week plus doing other stuff like that, like really high output, not I work out most days. Like, that's not probably what we're looking at. If that's the case, then I would recommend getting a clinical assessment done, because it's very likely you've got that going on if you're that level of fatigue. So if you sleep, again, well over 9.5 hours a day in aggregate altogether, you need to get an assessment done.
Well, Dr. Galpin, it's 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for taking time. This was awesome. You are our first speaker that we did this podcast style format, and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed having the back and forth, and can't thank you enough for getting on the call. Can't thank you enough for what you do for the human performance space. Thank you again.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm a huge advocate of our service members, so a million thank yous to all of you for being a part of it directly, or whether you're in or just support staff. Huge advocate. Can't thank you all enough for everything y'all do.
Yes. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a great
All
day.
right. Cheers.